Alright folks, welcome back to your daily dose of Celtic chat. So I sat down today, like I always do, scrolling through the latest news, checking the updates, trying to find something juicy to talk about, and honestly it's one of those days where not much is happening, pretty quiet actually. The transfer updates that we've been following closely, the likes of Benjamin Nugren and Hayato Amamura, they're still moving along, progressing slowly, but there's no big breaking news to bring you on either of them. Same story with Callum Osman and Ross Dawn. The general feeling is that all those deals will get done eventually, but as of today, there's no official word or big development. So instead of going in circles with speculation on that front, I thought, let's shift gears a bit. Let's have a proper chat about an area that in my opinion hasn't really been given enough attention so far this summer, the striker position. It's a huge part of any team setup, and with all the talk about midfielders, wingers, defenders, and even goalkeepers, it feels like the conversation around strikers has been surprisingly quiet. And to be honest, I'm a bit surprised we haven't dived into this earlier, especially when we're talking about the starting 11 for next season. Now, of course, Callum Osman is a striker, and yeah, he's coming in on a free from Fulham. But let's be real here, he's coming in as more of a squad option, at least to begin with. He's young, still has a lot to prove, and no one's expecting him to walk straight into the starting lineup at Celtic Park and lead the line from day one. But when you look at the bigger picture, it's a crucial position, and I know I'm not alone in thinking this. I reckon most of you out there feel the same. We need a proper first-team ready centre-forward to come in this summer. A player who can hit the ground running, score goals, and be the focal point of the attack. Now just quickly, before we dive fully into the striker debate, let me touch on the UEFA Champions League draw from yesterday. The draw for the first qualifying round was made, and while Celtic weren't involved obviously, it's still the first step in the long road to the group stage for a lot of clubs. 28 champions from across Europe had their names pulled out of the hat, and the journey begins for them. Not a huge deal for us right now, but I will say the tie between Shelbourne and Linfield did catch my eye. One of those fixtures that just stands out when you look at the draw sheet. So how does it work going forward? Well, the 14 winners from that first qualifying round will be joined by 10 new teams in the second round. Then the 12 winners from that will go into the draw for the third qualifying round, which, funnily enough, gets drawn before the second round even finishes. And from there it's the playoff round. That's where Celtic enter the equation. Just for context, there are already a few teams we're not allowed to face in that playoff round. Teams like Copenhagen Cavines, Vesta Ferencvaros, and Bodo Glimt. All off the table for us due to UEFA's various protection rules and seedings. If you want the full breakdown on all the potential opponents and what the road back to the Champions League group stage actually looks like for Celtic, I did a full video on that last week. Go check it out if you've not seen it yet. But back to the main event for today, the striker situation at Celtic. So here's where we stand right now. We've got Idah, Johnny Kenny, and as mentioned, Callum Osman joining soon. That deal is pretty much done, just waiting on the formalities. Idah played a decent chunk of last season up front, although he finished the campaign back out on the left wing. Part of that was down to injuries in the squad, but from what I remember, he'd already moved back wide even before certain injuries hit. Like, think back to that Scottish Cup semi-final against St Johnstone and Hampton. I'm fairly sure Idah was playing off the left that day with other options leading the line. So the big question is, how does Brendan Rodgers see Idah going into next season? Is he a winger first, or could he be viewed as a genuine striker option again? My gut says Rodgers sees him primarily as a left winger. The most recent comments we've got from Brendan on this came back in early April. He said at the time that KYOGO was his main central striker and that Idah had played plenty off the side, but was still effective there. Rodgers even mentioned that back when Idah was at Yokohama, he could play centrally if needed. But it wasn't the ideal scenario. Remember January, Rodgers openly said he didn't want to have to play Idah through the middle because he wanted the squad as strong as possible, but if they couldn't get a striker in, then Idah would do a job there. So that's pretty telling. Ideally, Rodgers wants Idah on the wing. It's more of a backup option when Idah plays through the middle. So for the sake of today's discussion, let's assume Idah stays primarily a left winger. That leaves US with Idah, Johnny Kenny, and Callum Osman as the three strikers on the books. And if you're feeling a bit uneasy about that being our forward line for next season, well, you're not alone. Even by Celtic standards, it feels unlikely that those three will be the only options we carry into a full campaign. More importantly, It's not what Brendan Rodgers wants. Remember last summer, Rodgers made it very clear what his ideal setup for the striker department looked like. He talked about wanting 3 strikers to topple well forwards, capable of leading the line, and 1 younger developmental prospect. At that point, the plan was for Rocco Vada to fill the 3rd spot, but as we all know, Vada moved on. Right now, Johnny Kenny is probably viewed as that developmental option. And with Osman arriving, we might see a bit of a battle between those two over preseason to determine who claims that 3rd striker slot. My gut feeling, Osman might just edge ahead of Kenny. From what we've seen, Osman seems to have a bit more about him. A higher ceiling, maybe a bit more natural ability, so potentially we're looking at Adam Idah as one of the top 2, Osman as the younger backup. And then the glaring vacancy, that number 1 striker. The main man, the game changer. Quick word on Adam Idah while we're here. He's been a bit of a divisive figure, hasn't he? Plenty of Celtic fans aren't fully convinced. Others point to the goals he's scored and think he's got what it takes. And then there's the middle ground. Folk who recognize he's a decent option but not the full answer. The fact is, Idah finished last season with 20 goals. That's a solid return for any striker, especially when you consider he wasn't nailed in first choice most of the year. In fact, when you actually dig into the numbers, he started almost 30 games, which is more than you might think off the top of your head. Compare that to guys like O, who only managed 5 goals in his first full season. Or even KYOGO's first year, where he scored 17. Idah's output stacks up pretty well. I like his attitude too. He clearly wants to do well, and there's no questioning his eye for goal. And it's a big, but there are still glaring weaknesses in his overall game. His build-up play can be really frustrating at times. You watch him and you just know he's got more to offer. Especially when you think back to that night at Rugby Park when we sealed the league title. He was absolutely brilliant then. There have been flashes where you see what he's capable of, but we need to see that level more consistently. His link-up play, holding the ball up, bringing others into the game. That side of things has to improve. And when you look at the team as a whole, it just feels like we're missing that kind of striker. Someone who can score goals but also be involved in the build-up, come short, hold off defenders, link play. The way Odsonne Edouard used to do, or even going back to Moussa Dembele. Both of those guys had that ability to change games, to bring others into play, to be the focal point. Just to be clear, I'm not saying Celtic should go out and try to bring Dembele or Edouard back specifically. But we need someone with that kind of profile. A striker who lifts the overall level of the team, a proper number 9 who can be the star of the show like Dembele was when he arrived in 2016. Or like Edouard was during his best seasons. Brendan Rodgers himself spoke about this last year. He said it's often easier for the club to find a top winger than a top striker, which makes you wonder, will Celtic try to strengthen out wide and then push Maid essentially again? Personally, I hope not. Rodgers wanted a striker in January, he'll want one again now. As for who it could be, well, that's the million-pound question, isn't it? There's been chatter for ages about Matthias Kvistgaarden at Brandby. Young Danish forward scores goals for fun. But latest word was that Celtic have dropped out of the race. Brandby wants something like £12 million, and with Premier League clubs sniffing around, that price is only going one way, up. There was also talk back in January about Kelechi Iheanacho, then at Sevilla, before going on loan to Middlesbrough. Didn't exactly set the championship alight. 1 goal in 15 games, but given his history with Rodgers, you wouldn't be shocked to see his name pop up again. After all, Celtic have a habit of going after players Rodgers has worked with before. The most intriguing name floating about right now, though, is Evan Ferguson from Brighton. Now, let's be real here, this might just be one of those internet rumors that takes on a life of its own. But there have been whispers on forums suggesting there's mutual interest, and that both Ferguson and Rodgers are keen on making something happen. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. There's a storm brewing in Glasgow, and it's not just the unpredictable weather. It's the growing whisper that Kyogo Furuhashi, the Japanese talisman who lit up Celtic Park with his dazzling flair and instinct for goal, could be making a sensational return to the hoops. Nothing's been confirmed, not yet. But that hasn't stopped the Celtic faithful from dreaming big. Word on the streets, and more so across the buzzing Celtic forums, suggests that Kyogo, after a somewhat quiet spell away from paradise, might just be fancying another chapter in green and white. Some fans claim he's been spotted in the city Others say his close pals in the squad have been a wee bit too cryptic on social media. Even a certain emoji-filled Instagram post has set tongues wagging. If the rumors hold any weight, it would be a massive boost for Brendan Rodgers' side, who've been seeking that spark up front, the kind only KYOGO brought with his sharp runs, killer instinct, and knack for showing up in the big moments. His understanding with the Celtic midfield, his tireless pressing, and above all, his bond with the support made him a standout not just in terms of ability, but as a fan favorite. Some insiders hint there's truth to the murmurings, citing that a deal could be on the table, depending on how things unfold in the coming weeks. Of course, football's a fickle business. Nothing's done until the scarf's held aloft, but there's something in the air that feels different this time. Could it be nostalgia? Or is there genuine movement behind the scenes? Either way, Parkhead is humming with excitement. For now, it's all speculation, but in football, where there's smoke, there's often fire. And if that fire brings KYOGO back to the Celtic front line, then the roar at Celtic Park will be heard far beyond the east end of Glasgow. Hello, fan! Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.